Hi folks, my name is Mike Dobbs. I'm managing editor for Reminder Publications, and welcome to this edition of 30 Minutes With, a talk show from Focus Springfield that's a little bit different. For one thing, we're coming from the luxurious appointed offices of Smokey Joe's Cigar Lounge here on Dwight Street in Springfield. This is to afford us the opportunity for a somewhat different setting in order to talk about things. And what we're doing with the show is that week number one is about politics and current affairs. Week number two is about pop culture and the arts. And I have the pleasure of having a very good friend of mine, Marty Langford, who's a professor of film at American International College and who is a for-real filmmaker as well. To be my guest, we're going to bandy around some topics. Some of them are sort of geek-like maybe, and some of them will be absolutely profound, because that's our job here, is to be geek-like and profound all at the same time. Marty, thank you for coming.
This is great. Thank you. I love this place.
Yeah, isn't this great?
This is amazing.
So I have to start out with something I call top-of-mind awareness, which is what's on your mind when it comes to pop culture these days? What topic is burrowing its way to the top of your cerebellum?
Marvel fatigue.
Marvel fatigue?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
We're
So we might as well start out with
what
one of the geek
is.
topics here,
Yeah.
which is, so you're tired of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I am. Yes, I have been. And I think the new Avengers movie just cemented the fact that I don't want to say I'm done, but I'm close. You know, Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 and Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther were terrific. I loved them.
Yep.
But those they tended kind of, you know, go away from that base Captain America, Iron Man, Avengers type of universe that they have, and that was welcome and it was lovely. But then when we got back to the new Avengers movie, it was just deep into it, and I remembered, oh yeah, that's right. As of 3 movies or 4 movies ago, I was sick of them, and now I'm sick of them again.
I love the Black Panther.
I did too.
Because I thought it was basically a Shakespearean drama.
It exactly was. Yeah.
It's a Shakespearean drama, cloaked in superhero-ness, but the bottom line was, I think people identified with that story because it was not an overtly superhero kind of movie.
Right. And I think what's important to note too is that not only Black Panther, but the Guardians of the Galaxy, and even Thor, even though I don't think I can pronounce the director's name, they all kind of had like auteurs,
right,
you know, as directors.
People with
between
real
Ryan
points of view.
Coogler and James Gunn, whereas the regular Marvel kind of approach is to have these directors who, you know, are just following the Marvel Kevin Feige banner of, you know, world building and universe building, and they're not like singular visions, you know.
So I wrote a review about the Avengers movie, and I know I'm in the minority point of view. I found it to be just one big fight.
Yeah.
Okay, it's sort of like a WrestleMania kind of an approach to it.
Well, you're right too, because that one, not that one, the whole sequence of the movie when they're on, when they're at Wakanda, and you've got the 2 factions kind of charging at each other with that Lord of the Rings, you know, effect of just thousands approaching this mid area where they're going to clash, and then it's just a cacophony of fighting, and it was, yeah, I was bored.
I have to say that where the film officially lost me.
I wonder if I can guess.
At this point, I don't know if we have to worry about spoilers because it's been a huge box office success. But where the film officially lost me was the scene where.
Give me 3 or 5 seconds.
Okay.
I want to guess what it was.
You want to guess?
Yeah.
Where the film
where
lost
the scene
me?
Lost. I don't know, what was it?
Okay, so for those of you who have seen the film, there's a scene where Thanos is on this on his home planet of Titan, and he's being besieged by all of these Marvel heroes.
Yeah.
And Thanos is the villain, and he's got this big glove with the Infinity Stones, which are Power Stones. So Iron Man and Spider-Man are trying to pull the glove off his hand, and they can't, which makes absolutely no logical sense. And I sat there and I went, okay, the way to end the movie is that Iron Man takes out one of his lasers and he slices Thanos' hand off.
And just takes the hand.
And then he takes the hand.
You know what? That makes perfect
and
sense.
I just sort of sat there, oh gosh. And from that point on, it was hard for me to sit through the film. It really was. But yet, it's made a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. No, it works. That's the thing
money.
is that nobody else seems to have it. Marvel fatigue. Nobody else seems to care or have it. But yeah, I'm done.
I envisioned it the same way back in the 1940s, Universal Pictures was well known for making a series of horror movies that featured Dracula, Lon Chaney's Wolfman, some incarnation of the Frankenstein monster, depending upon who they could get into the soup. And they ran out of ideas, so the idea that they had was to put all the monsters into one film. And the idea was that you gave audiences something they never saw before, which was all of the monsters.
Yeah, well, Godzilla did it too. You know, when you have the individual Godzilla films, and then all of a sudden, you know, you start to build on that, and you have Destroy All Monsters, which is just this monster party.
So that's how I likened this film.
Yeah.
This was, we're going to put everybody in this.
Except Hawkeye.
Except Hawkeye, yes. For whatever reason, Hawkeye, you know. Oh, and Ant-Man. Ant-Man didn't make it.
Right, there's some throwaway line, and then that's just the...
Yeah, so I don't know why they didn't put those guys in if they reached their $15 billion budget or something. So yes, Marty and I have the same top-of-mind awareness, which is I'm sort of done with this kind of thing. But I have to ask you, one thing that has, and you teach film at AIC, and I know you have some interesting reactions from students about the films that they are watching.
Oh my gosh.
I taught film at Western New England College or Western New England University for a number of years, and I had some interesting reactions. Mr. Dobbs, when are we going to get to see Gone with the Wind? I said, you can see Gone with the Wind any night of the week. Go to a video store. I'd like to show you something that actually you can maybe couldn't see.
Yeah. It would make my year if students would ask, Marty, when are we going to see Gone with the Wind?
Really?
Yeah, they, you know, I screen, I have a movie called Great Directors, and we screen movies by what I consider to be a great director. And anything pre-90, you know, is an old film, and the interest just wanes, and it just, God forbid it's black and white. It's difficult.
I showed my class Intolerance once.
Yeah. Usually I will say...
Which was, I never did that again. I never did that again.
I will say that it's just those kinds of moans and groans that you get at the beginning of class when you announce what the movie is. After class and then in the subsequent papers, I do tend to find that they do appreciate it. They do like the movies that we screen, but it's just getting past that initial hump of, oh, it's in black and white, oh, it's subtitled, oh, it's this or that, and it's not something contemporary.
So I've got two questions that are basically based on, number one, both of us loving film the way we do, and number two, that you're teaching film. The first is, in a world of streaming video, do we need libraries of DVDs and Blu-rays? I know what my answer is.
Yeah.
I'd be curious what your answer is.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I need physical media. I need some kind of representation of what it is that I'm going to watch, even if it's just a little silver disc that, you know, sits around mostly and I take out when I watch it. I like that, but I also have that collector thing, which I think maybe you do too. Is that,
Yes.
I like tactile things. You know, I like to handle things. I like to look at things. I like to display things. And the idea of like a streaming library, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's cool that I can watch what I want when I want, and I have 3 kids, and when they want to watch what they want to watch, it's much easier to just go on the remote control than to go to the big bookcases or the, you know, my library, and there's nothing there they're going to want to see anyway. But I get where it's going, and but I do suspect there's always going to be a market for physical media. I mean, when you look at vinyl collectors these days, you know, I guess it's never gone away. It's come back in a big way now, but I do think there's always going to be a market for it, and I hope there always is, because for physical media, for videos and movies, because that will just be such a loss. I couldn't imagine not having that.
My problem is, there's so many older films that I've never had the chance of seeing. And whether they be big budget studio films or they are B movies from the 1940s, and I want to see this stuff.
Yeah, what's like a holy grail for you?
Anything Republic Pictures made.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely totally in love and in awe of Republic Pictures, because they made films that looked like big budget films. And they did it with limited resources, but the physical look is great. But if I want to stream this stuff, it's tough to find. You're not going to find many even black and white classic movies on Netflix or Hulu. I mean, all of that material is, you know, I sat there and did searches on Netflix. Boris Karloff, nothing. Christopher Lee, nothing. Peter Cushing, nothing. All my horror icons, right? And then, so you go John Wayne. Well, you may get a couple
the
Wayne
Searchers.
pictures. You may get the Searchers. But you're not going to, all of this nearly 100 years of film history isn't represented in streaming very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's nowadays everything's shot digitally. 90% is shot digitally, so it's much easier to have that transition because they have the compression, they have the file already, and then they just have to disseminate this file through whatever streaming platform there's going to be. But yeah, when it comes to this stuff that you're talking about that's shot on 16 millimeter, for the Republic type stuff and 35 for the the bigger movies back then anyway, there's a huge cost associated with transferring physical photochemical 35 and 16 millimeter film, through what the telecine process they call it, to turn it into a digital file. That's expensive. So I mean, I hope you get to see all the stuff that you want to get to see.
Yeah, because I'm old and I'll die in a few years. But that's how I view it.
Wow.
But even to say to your students, okay, if you liked seeing this Orson Welles film, then you should see this, this, and this. And then the question is, where or how can they see it?
Right.
Because going to the video store down the street, which would have a section called Classics, and you could find this material, is long gone.
It is. I saw this. There was I think it was like Vanity Fair or Vulture. It was a V online magazine article that came out, and the article was about this guy who wanted to see Air Force One, the Harrison Ford movie.
Right.
And he was like, I want to watch Air Force One tonight, and he went through all of his things. He went through Vudu, and he went through Hulu, and he went through Netflix and Amazon Prime, and it wasn't on any of them. And he didn't have the option to go to Blockbuster because we don't have Blockbusters anymore. And all of a sudden, it became this thing of, in this world where we have everything, almost, seemingly everything at our fingertips, electronically, digitally, he couldn't watch, a pretty contemporary movie made in the 90s starring the biggest blockbuster movie star there is with Harrison Ford. That wasn't available. So it's not as, and there are dozens and dozens and hundreds of movies that kind of fall into these little cracks and crevices where they're just not being represented on any of these platforms at any one time. So we kind of don't get everything, or we don't have access to what we think we do when it comes to when we say everything's out there, because it's not.
No, it really isn't. And if it's out there, you really do have to search for it. This is why, I marvel at the guys at Vinegar Syndrome in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This is a company that's been set up to legitimately rescue exploitation films and, dare I say it, porn.
What does Vinegar Syndrome mean?
What does Vinegar? You know what Vinegar Syndrome means.
I know.
Vinegar Syndrome, by the way, is when a 35 millimeter print, when it starts deteriorating, it has the smell of vinegar. And when these physical prints deteriorate, folks, then you have to go through a great deal of physical and chemical restoration so you can show this movie again. And what this company in Bridgeport, Connecticut does is takes films that basically are completely orphan kind of movies. They find out who legitimately owns these films, and then they restore them. And they have actually built a pretty thriving business off the backs of movies that most people would not see any value in.
Yeah, they do a great job down there. And then they have, like in the first floor, is the retail component where they sell the DVDs and Blu-rays that they make from these prints that are on the upstairs section where they do all the restoration and the telecine process. And did you go on a tour there at any of them?
No, I didn't go.
Next time we go down there.
Yes, next time. Well, I wanted to talk about this because, you're actively dealing with trying to open the minds of students when it comes to film. But at the same time, it must be frustrating when you realize that if you say, if you like that, you should watch this, and it's how do you watch this over there? Unless, the Springfield Public Library, for instance, has a big selection of DVDs and Blu-rays still. So there are sources for some of this material, but it's not maybe as readily available as it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah, and you can't blame Netflix and Hulu and Vudu because these movies, they're not going to get the clicks. Nobody's going to be really searching out for them, which is unfortunate. So it's just not in the interests of their bottom line to go through the expense of, getting these movies in their library.
Now, granted, maybe it's because I'm old, but I actually do miss video stores.
Yeah, going to the video store, walking through the aisles, going through each category, going to the action section and the horror section, and going to the employee recommendations, and I miss it too. So
let me ask you this. we've seen in the last few years an ongoing argument, an ongoing discussion about how do you deal with someone who is making movies or making TV shows or is a performer of some sort who is treating people in a very bad way. The most obvious one right now is, of course, Bill Cosby, who has been recently prosecuted. So how do you reconcile the artist as a human being with his or her art?
Yeah.
How do you say to your class, well, you know, Roman Polanski was a great director, and he made some really good movies, but he also was convicted of statutory rape, and he fled the country.
Yeah. Of a 13-year-old.
And he's won the Oscar.
Of a 13-year-old.
A 13-year-old, yeah. And he's won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Since then.
Right.
So how do these subjects come up in your class? I mean, they're in pop culture, in media all the time now. You know, how are we to look at Harvey Weinstein, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I guess luckily, and I hate to say luckily, that he's not like represented in any one film. It's not like you can say this is a Harvey Weinstein film. He was a producer, he was a money guy, he wasn't the creative force behind any of the movies that he produced. But, you know, Roman Polanski was. Victor Salva from the Jeepers Creepers movies and Powder, who was a convicted sex offender, was. Woody Allen, that's a longer discussion in terms of like what he did, but you know, he is, and yeah, how do you reconcile that in your minds? I haven't had that come up in class. I mean, I do watch Annie Hall in my great directors class, but I've never once had a student say, oh, Woody Allen's gross because he did all this stuff that my mom told me that I read about in an article. I'm not sure how I'd handle that in a class of 50 kids before me asking and looking to me to say, you know, how can we reconcile the fact that Woody Allen did all these horrible things, you know, but we're still watching and laughing at his movies. It is a difficult question. I personally, I can't watch Victor Salva movies. Victor Salva was he made the Jeepers Creepers horror movies. He made a movie called Powder that Disney released back in the 80s or the 90s. He made a movie notoriously called Clown House, which was a movie where he was actually one of the young actors who was in the movie was one of his victims. And this guy went to jail for a long time. And some people say he paid his price and now he's out making movies again. And Jeepers Creepers 3 like just came out in 2018. This guy, people are still giving him money to make movies, even though he's a convicted pedophile. I can't watch him. Can I watch Chinatown? Yeah, I've seen Chinatown in the past, you know, since I've been aware of Roman Polanski and his indiscretions. And I guess you just maybe, I don't know, you have a switch that you turn off and you let the art overwhelm you and you distance yourself from the reality. But maybe sometimes there's just too much to ask of somebody, like in the case of a Victor Salva.
Right, and I find it very interesting because I think this is going to come up more and more in popular culture discussions.
I mean, just look at the last year.
Yeah. You know, so it just doesn't affect, like, using Harvey Weinstein as an example. So now, of course, Meryl Streep has been painted with a bad brush because supposedly Meryl Streep knew that Harvey Weinstein was doing things and didn't say something. Yeah. So now it's like the idea that people went along because they were fearful of retribution from this guy. But I think it does.
Even when they're not just, even when it's them, when it's Kevin Spacey, you know.
There's another great example.
Can we watch House of
Cards?
Cards. I would say House of Games. Can I recommend House of Cards? Something that I binged and that I loved and that I couldn't wait for the next season to come on. And then kind of, can you recommend that to somebody as like this great, dramatic, political intrigue, romantic, funny, horrible, people doing amazing. It's a great show. It's a brilliant show. But I don't know if I can watch Kevin Spacey's face on a TV screen again. I think I can, but I don't know. It's so hard.
I think that his career is done.
Yeah.
I think honestly his career is done. I think that a lot of these.
Weren't we saying that about Mel Gibson when those the audio tapes came out of him screaming at his girlfriend and yelling at cops?
But yeah, he's still working.
And exactly. So I mean, in 10 years, are we going to forgive Kevin Spacey? You know, I don't think. I hope not. I kind of hope not because what he. I mean, he wasn't convicted of anything.
No,
But
no, just accused.
yeah, but when the accusations are such that they're coming from enough sources that seem to be, legit, then yeah, I guess we kind of just have to acknowledge that the guy's kind of a bad guy.
I think it's going to be something that people are really going to have to grapple with in terms of how they appreciate film, how they appreciate music. I had a bad interview with Don McLean, the guy who did American Pie.
Is he like a jerk?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's in my book, folks, which is called 15 Minutes With, available on Amazon. And I didn't listen to his music, and I had all of his music for years afterwards. It took me years to get past.
Oh man.
Get past that.
Yeah.
So I do wonder how this is going to color people. You read any one of the biographies of Orson Welles, and Welles was not a particularly nice guy.
Yeah, Hitchcock.
Hitchcock was a notoriously terrible guy.
Yeah.
And yet, both of those people made some of the absolute seminal films in American film history that you have to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I can watch The Shining. I can watch a movie that I love, knowing that behind the scenes, Stanley Kubrick is screaming, threatening Shelley Duvall to get this performance out of her, which is a magical performance, but not that way. That's not how you get art.
No, I would like to think that's not the way you get art, but unfortunately, sometimes it is. What are you looking forward to next few weeks here in terms of movies coming out?
Oh gosh, what the heck is coming out?
Deadpool 2.
Oh, that'll be fun. I
Yes.
like Deadpool.
I love
Those are
Deadpool.
hilarious. When do I introduce my 13-year-old daughter to Deadpool, who is
Oh my
with
gosh,
her
that's a
older
good-
brother is telling her, "Oh, I love this character," and she
I-
loves superheroes because she's got me as a dad. But yeah, she can't watch that yet.
No, I would say no. Yeah, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, Solo will be fine, I guess. Star Wars. I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but it looks like it'll be okay. So I kind of like what Lucasfilm and Disney, I guess, now is doing with their properties. It seems to be working. I mean, each movie seems to have these horrible post-production problems or production problems,
right.
but for the most part, when the movies come out, I enjoy them enough,
Well, we're going to have you back on, and we'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll do a summer movie special in a few weeks, and we'll actually talk about things that we have seen and whether or not they were worth the hype. But I want to thank folks for watching for this edition of 30 Minutes With. And I want to thank Joe Hendricks for hosting us once again here
I
at Smokey
love this
Joe's Cigar.
place.
Isn't it great?
I know.
And folks, thank you very much for tuning in.